Yo, today we will be talking about the enchantments in the game, what those are, how to get them, and how to use them effectively. So if you want to improve your knowledge about the enchantments, come on in, because we are diving under the surface. What should we start with? Should we enumerate all the enchantments and then talk more about what we can do with those?
Yeah, I guess let's go over the 10 that we know of that are in the game. And
Mhm.
you guys can help us out in the comments if we missed any.
Right. So we have a couple of enchantments. Actually, we found 10 of them, but it is possible that we missed some. However, starting with, there is a golden enchantment which doubles the value of your enchanted item. And one thing that we need to also mention that whenever an item is enchanted, it automatically doubles its value. So I assume that golden item actually quadruples its value.
I'm not entirely sure because I just saw that one today for the first time. I didn't even know it was in the game.
I
But I,
saw
I
it.
also haven't played as much Pig, so maybe that's part of it.
I see. I saw it like twice or three times already, but I didn't really pay that much attention to it. But I guess when you are playing Pig, sometimes having more value on your items is actually beneficial, especially since they nerfed all the uh, properties. But yes, golden means that your item has double value. So things like vineyard, things like pig's gym, things like skyscraper or space scraper are going to benefit from being golden or having something that is golden. To be fair, I think we can agree on the fact that golden isn't the most useful enchantment in the game.
Potentially the least useful out of all the ones on the list.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you can actually upgrade something with golden. I think you can only roll items that are golden. Because I haven't been able to see an encounter that allows you to enchant with golden. So next, we have shielded. And this, as you might expect, gives shield to an enchantment, to the enchanted item. And not every item will actually like shielded. I think, and I would like to hear your thoughts about it, but I don't like enchanting items with enchants that do exactly the same as the items already do themselves. In a sense that I wouldn't enchant a shielding item with shielded. If you do, usually the upgrade isn't that significant.
I've never done that because it just seems silly. But I was about to ask you if you had any clue what actually happens when you do that. Is it just you get more shield?
Like in terms of shielded, yes, you would get like plus 20 shield or plus 30 on top of your regular effect. But there are situations where I think you could argue that upgrading an item with the same effect is beneficial. I once had a toxic pufferfish, so it was simply stronger. Like I think at
Gotcha.
that point it gave me like plus 7 poison on that pufferfish. So I mean pufferfish is really strong and it likes poison on itself. So that wasn't like completely wasteful. But yes, in essence, you probably shouldn't double down on one effect. You want to give those effects like shielded to things that do not shield already to make them do more stuff at the same time, right?
Yeah. I think the only two times I can really think where it'd be super useful is poison and fire because they scale so well.
Mm-hmm.
And like most of your items should be one of those things if you're running that sort of build. But yeah, I wouldn't.
Okay, yeah,
I
so
agree.
shielded gives shielding. Usually you want most of your enchantments on your lowest cooldown item, but it depends. We'll get into that. Okay, the next enchantment is deadly. So deadly gives you usually plus 50% crit chance. But deadly is related to crit chance in general. Mainly you're going to put it on your weapon. So when you put it on your weapon, it usually gives you plus 50% crit chance. But if you give it to a tool or a shielding item, not every tool, of course, is going to use this deadly effect, but there are situations where you can make I don't know, an effect. So like when you crit, do something. No. I think we need to cut that because I think that's not true. I think whenever you use an item, you may get crit. I think that's what it would do.
Oh, okay, on like the passive
Mm-hmm.
things. Okay, I was about to ask that question because I couldn't remember.
Yeah,
I always apply it to my weapon.
yeah, I think if you apply deadly to a non-weapon item, it might give an effect that will increase the crit chance on your other items. There is going to be a requirement and you need to fulfill. You need to fulfill the requirement for you to get more crit chance on your items. But usually deadly is the most useful on a weapon. If we look further, we have heavy. And heavy means that the item enchanted with that is going to slow other items. And this is actually really useful. All forms of crowd control are really strong in the Bazaar. So having a quickly charging item that slows enemy items is really nice.
Yeah. I'm gonna let you like run through these and then we can talk because this is gonna take forever if we.
Do you think?
I feel like.
Okay, yes, sure. Let's do that. So, first of all, heavy gives slow, as I said. You shouldn't give heavy to items that already slow, since it's going to prolong the effect by 1 second, which isn't great. I mean, it isn't terrible, but if you have like a item which slows only one target and you give it heavy, it's going to slow one target for a bit longer. So that isn't particularly useful. We also have restorative, which will add healing effect to an item. So as I said, you don't want to increase healing on an item that already has healing. You probably need something that triggers often to heal, well, often. But actually, restorative, I think, is one of the more underwhelming effects because it's like plus 20 healing or plus 30. So whenever your health bar reaches like 10,000 HP or 5,000 HP, whatever you are actually doing in the run, like plus 30 isn't that significant. And then we have the most useful upgrade in the game. I mean, maybe one of two. So that would be Radiant. And Radiant means the item that has this enchantment cannot be slowed, frozen, or destroyed, which is insane on your carry items, right? Like Langshan, maybe a Submarine. It doesn't work on Dam, unfortunately. Dam is going to destroy itself because it's sort of a sacrifice effect, but your Radiant items are going to be protected against all the perma-freeze builds or maybe Mamazors or other dams, right?
It can save your whole run if you have it like protected from freeze.
Yes. So if you are like one weapon build or you have a crucial piece of combo that you need to go off, the Radiant is almost necessary, but it's really hard to get it. So if you actually roll Radiant Enchantment, you should think twice what to do with it. Then we have Toxic and Fiery. So Toxic gives a little bit more poison on top of the effect, and Fiery gives a little bit of burn. However, as there are a lot of interactions between poison and burn, you can actually make some fun combos, fun interactions with those effects. So they are useful in particular scenarios, but on average they aren't that strong. But if you go into any of those builds, I think you would like those enchantments, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then we have Obsidian, which means lifesteal. So I'm not sure if you can enchant non-weapon item with Obsidian, but I haven't tried that yet. But
what would that even do?
No idea.
I guess it's important to note that whenever you're testing like to enchant items, a lot of them just don't work. So
yes, but if you take your item and hover over this parchment that you have to put the item on top of, If it glows, it means that your item can be enchanted with the given enchantment, but if it stays like grayed out sort of, it won't grant the enchantment. We also have Turbo, which hastes items. You probably know all about haste, so I don't need to go into details, but essentially Turbo will either increase the haste duration on your items or simply grant an effect like haste one item for 1 second. Additionally, there's a really powerful enchantment that I don't think can be found naturally in the game, in the sense that you cannot enchant one of your items with it. And that particular enchantment is Shiny. Shiny grants +1 multicast to the affected item. So if you ever find a shiny item, and it fits your board, I think it's really good idea to get it. And last enchantment on our list is Icy, and I think this is the most ridiculous enchantment that you can get, because, well, it's going to freeze your opponent's items. And, well, as I said previously, you usually want the enchantment on your lowest cooldown item just for it to trigger as many times as it can, right? However, Icy is usually the most useful on passive items, because, for example, on Crow's Nest, if you do a Icy Crow's Nest, it's going to say that whenever you crit, you're going to freeze. So you might have a build that crits a lot, much more often than just once every 5 seconds or something, if you were to put it on an active item. And also, let's say you do Icy Pufferfish. So this Icy Pufferfish is going to have this additional line of text which is going to say, when you haste, freeze an item for 1 second. So if you're going to have an infinite combo of hasting, this pufferfish is going to perma-freeze your opponent's board. Also, this Vanessa's Amulet is I think the best holder for Icy Enchantment. It's going to be whenever you use an item, freeze one item for 1 second. You want to use your items, right? I don't think there is even one build in the Bazaar which doesn't use any active items.
A lot of it too is you're usually with Icy, Fiery, Toxic, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of feels like you should put it on the bigger items, but it's almost always better to put it on the passive or the smaller items, at least from my experience.
Usually, yeah.
I've been disappointed every time I've put it on my main damage item. So I would not do that, because it'll just give you 30 fire or 30 toxic
yes,
on
so,
a long cooldown weapon.
As I've said that 3 times already, I think. You usually want your enchantments on your lowest cooldown items, because then you can trigger them many times in a fight and get as much bang for your buck as you can, in essence. But the rule of thumb is that I follow is, if an item has an active effect, so in essence has a cooldown, probably the enchantment effect is going to be added to the cooldown effect. So let's say you have an item that triggers every 5 seconds and it, I don't know, heals for 50 or maybe gives 50 shields, anything like that. And when you add, let's say, shielded, maybe you add heavy or restorative, toxic, fiery, icy, whatever, it's going to trigger every 5 seconds whenever this item actually goes off. However, if the effect is passive, it usually means that if you do shielded, restorative, toxic, fiery, or icy, some other item will trigger that after fulfilling the requirement that the item sets. My examples were Crow's Nest with whenever you crit, Pufferfish with whenever you haste, and Vanessa's Amulet whenever you use an item. I'm sure there are many combinations which work insane. I suppose that Icy Caltrops might be insane.
Ooh.
But on the other hand, when you do Caltrops, you probably want your opponent's items to trigger, so maybe Icy isn't the best option here. But maybe Toxic or Fiery or even obsidian. Obsidian caltrops must be insane.
Yeah, caltrops with any enchantment sounds ridiculous now that you think about it. That item's just kind of ridiculous, though, to be honest.
I haven't had the pleasure yet to try it out.
I've had the pleasure of being against it a couple times.
Oh boy. Right. Okay, but just like the fact that enchantments exist doesn't really tell the whole story, because you don't necessarily need to first of all die and get an enchantment at the resurrection event, and most of the time getting an enchantment after resurrection is the correct option. I think I chose the diamond item option like twice or 3 times, and the experience option I think I chose once.
Same for me. And I think the diamond option, like diamond item option, is kind of hit or miss if you'll get anything you want to actually keep.
I mean,
So
if you don't have anything on your board, then and you are sort of desperate to find some cornerstone to build your board around, then you might go for diamond option, since you can find a strong item to pivot towards. But okay, as we are focusing on enchantments, let's leave that issue at that. Other way of getting an enchantment is whenever you level to, well, level 15 or sometimes level 16, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's level 15, you also get an enchantment as your level up reward. So sometimes, if you can play your cards right, getting that enchantment might allow you to push through those last couple of fights. So that is another way of getting an enchantment.
when you do the level 15 one, is that the one where you get the choice of 3 enchantments?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so that's pretty big.
Although you might hit like restorative, shielded, and let's say deadly, and I think that would be a terrible choice.
Yeah, it could be just do hardly anything in your build, but sometimes when you go to Stacia and it's just the one, it's like the worst thing it could have possibly been. It's just like shielded and you didn't need that at all.
Yeah, I agree. Additionally, there are merchants who sell enchanted items. Well, and of course, in the later days, you can get an encounter that simply offers you an enchantment. So that is also pretty useful. However, regarding those merchants, there is Seraphina, which simply offers enchanted items. However, there are also other merchants who are specialized in one type of enchantment or couple of them. So, for example, we have Hef, who sells fire items.
Yeah. Like a lot of the merchants that are diamond merchants, like Hef, he has fire, just regular fire items, but then also regular items with fire enchantments.
Yes.
So they become fire based. And there's kind of a merchant for, well, I guess I don't know. There's not a toxic one, is there?
There is.
Oh,
I think those options like Hef for fire, or there is also a like this lady with a blue jacket that sells freezing items. So
yeah.
in my opinion, there are some secret requirements. Like you have to fulfill some requirements, maybe have enough items of the given type on your board or something like that for you to be able to roll that encounter. Because I don't think you can get them. I mean, there is a chance that there is a really low percent chance that you can roll that particular option, like Hef as for fiery, or simply Seraphina for any enchantments, or Kronos for heavy or turbo. I suppose that if you have enough items that have this synergy, the game sort of nudges you towards that, but not always.
Yeah, and it feels the same way even like when you go to Stacia and stuff. It feels like there's a good chance you'll get the thing you want, even though the odds seem lower. So, and the kind of the whole game's like that, which that's a whole different conversation. But
I mean, there are situations, I suppose, where the game tries to help you, but on the other hand, there are a lot of situations where the game doesn't really want to deal you any aces.
And I know this happens in other situations. I'm sure it does, but like Dooley has, I can't remember the name of the item, but there's an item that he has scraps or something like that. I can't remember, but it's a really good item that upgrades the core.
Yes, there is one.
And if it has an enchantment on it, which I think is extremely rare, but you can find it with an enchantment on it, it
Mm-hmm.
adds that enchantment to the core, and that's kind of a common thing. Like if something's upgrading something, it takes the enchantment with it. So
Yeah. Is there anything else to add?
I think maybe the last thing I'll add is that the enchantments are way more common than I kind of initially expected. They're still you're not going to see them all the time, but you're going to pick them up pretty much every run somewhere for the most part, or have the opportunity to.
I mean, to be fair, you can take at least one enchantment every game because you're going to die.
Oh, true.
Well, possibly you're going to die. You can do a perfect run, right? But if you're going to do a perfect run, there is probably a reason why you're doing a perfect run.
The enchantments kind of expand the number of cards because now there's like 10 other versions of the card that exist out there. So it makes the game more complex and more fun, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And when I played the Friends and Family, and enchantments were not in it, and it's way more fun with the enchantments, like by a landslide. So
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. So one last thing I probably would like to add to to how you should actually use the enchantments. So we already established that you probably shouldn't stack enchantments on top of already existing effects on your items. However, sometimes it can be beneficial. So, as I said, if you add shielded to a already shielding item, then it's going to add only a little bit. However, there are situations like, let's say, well, I mentioned already toxic pufferfish, but something like, right, so let's say marbles, which slow whenever you use a small item. First of all, you could add shielded to those marbles to shield whenever you use adjacent small item. So this can actually increase the number of triggers that it does. So this is a good example of using shielded on an item. So if you put it next to a bird, you're going to, on average, 100 shield. However, doing a heavy marbles actually makes sense because since marbles targets more than one item, extending the slow on marbles is fairly useful. Additional thing could be like dock lines, who also target more than one thing. Making that heavy could also, well, increase the CC duration that you put on your enemy. And then I guess if you have a, like, let's say a beach ball on at gold tier, I think it hastes 4 items. So having a turbo beach ball can extend that haste length, well, by 1 second. However, you can also do that with, let's say, rocket boots. I'm not sure if enchantment is worth, like, let's say 4 gold. I think rocket boots, that's how much they cost. But
yeah,
there are situations where just simply boosting the stats on your items by putting the enchantments on them is reasonable. I guess you should try and think what is actually most useful. So things that trigger like shielded or heavy or restorative or icy, fiery, toxic, turbo, those things you would like to have on things that trigger often and not necessarily trigger by charging up, but being like interacting with other items, right? But obsidian, you need that on a weapon that hits hard. I don't know about your preference.
yeah. I've always put it on my big like hitting weapon every single time. So maybe there's a situation, but I haven't seen it yet personally.
Mm-hmm. And if you cannot get obsidian or radiant on your most crucial part of the build, then I guess giving it deadly is like a good halfway measure. I guess critting half the time is sort of useful, especially
Yeah,
if you can get it to like a lot of damage.
it can definitely go hard in some of the Vanessa crit type builds,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, it's definitely more situational.
If we haven't covered anything, if we missed anything, please let us know.
And also, we know that there's going to be other enchantments in the game, so please let us know if you've have information of what those are planned to be, because I know it's been said somewhere, but we don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've already mentioned this, but
Definitely. Reynard also mentioned that whenever they are going to add new enchantments to the game, they are going to look through already existing items and add the option to enchant with new stuff to already released stuff. So the enchantment library sort of is going to increase with the time. So I guess we've covered enchantments thoroughly enough. I guess you will have now some sort of groundwork, what enchantments are, what enchantments can you actually find in the game. So whenever you find this, let's say, enchant an item with a random effect, you can actually have a faint idea what is possible, and then maybe you will improve your win ratio by having this knowledge. I certainly hope so.
yeah, don't go in blind like we did and just start putting it on random stuff, hoping it works.
Oh, I wasted so many enchantments and so many items by trying stuff out. That's not even
Same.
funny. The main takeaway from this video: if an item triggers often, it usually is the best holder for an enchantment. However, some passive effects can actually make the enchantment trigger more often if that passive effect interacts with other items. Yeah, I guess that's it.
That's enchantments.
Thanks for watching another episode of Under the Surface, and we'll see you next time, I suppose.
I'll see you on my channel on Thursday.
Bye!
I'm enchanted.